Hey friends, Ginger here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi. Thank you for stopping into my corner of the internet. And today we are going to be talking about all the books that I read in January, my first wrap up of the year. I'm excited. I actually had a really good reading month in January. I read all of the books I had set out to read that were on my TBR. And honestly, I can't think back to a time where I read all the books on my TBR. So I am so happy with myself. I think keeping my TBR small and reading books that I'm excited about is really helpful, and I'm going to continue to do that moving forward. Well, mostly moving forward. So I read a total of 8 books in January, which again were all of the ones I wanted to read, so I was really happy. I also started a couple books in January as well, but I will not probably be finishing them until February, as I am filming this the day before this goes up. So unless I speed run through a book tonight, 8 books is my total. And so that ended up being a total page count of 3,223 pages. Most of my books were between 300 and 400 pages. And I had an average rating of 3.4 stars. So a lot of the books that I read were between 3 and 4 stars. So just average to pretty good. I don't think I had a single 5-star though. I also didn't have a single 1-star, so it was pretty much just an average to good reading month. I do have one other book I'm going to talk about because I read it in that weird lull period between Christmas and New Year's where I was no longer counting books towards my goal, but it wasn't January yet, so I'm going to mention it briefly because it was really good, but it's not in these stats. Yeah, so I guess let's just go ahead and get into talking about the books. Most of these books I've had either reading vlogs up for or I've talked about in other things, so if you want to see how I felt about them in the moment, I would go ahead and check those vlogs out. But this is mostly just going to be an overview, giving you my star ratings and general thoughts on all the books and if I recommend them or not. So let's go ahead and dive in. So the one I want to briefly talk about is, again, that limbo book, and that is The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein. I just kind of picked this one up. I had started it way back in July of 2020, and I just picked it up and finished it, and it was really good. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was just a really heartwarming book, and if you like reading about dogs, then this is the book for you. If you like Marley and Me or A Dog's Purpose, then this one should be on your TBR as well. I don't really have much else to say about it because I feel you have to be in that very specific, pretty much if you're in that specific genre liking where you like books about dogs or where the dogs are the narrator, then you're gonna like this book. That's all there is to it. Obviously there are a little bit of trigger warnings in here. There's a trigger warning I'm going to say for illness in here, so just go into that knowing, because I didn't know that, but it has some sad moments, some happy moments. It's just a really good book, and so I really wanted to mention it here because I didn't have anywhere else to mention it. So this was my limbo book. I would highly recommend it, especially if you are someone who likes dog books. Then we're actually going to talk about the books I read in January now. I'm going to go in order from which one I read first to which one I read last, so they aren't in order of star ratings or anything, so we're just gonna hop on in. The first book that I read in the month was Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I read this one for the Buzzwordathon challenge that's going on every month, where you read a book or multiple books surrounding the buzzword for the month. This month it was dreams or dreamer, or with the word dream in it, so I picked this one up, and I ended up giving this one between a 4 and a 4.5 star. I really loved it overall. I thought that the world and characters that Laini Taylor built in here was really cool and unique, and I really loved the fantasticalness of it and Laszlo as a character and some of the other characters. The biggest issue I had and why I didn't love it completely was that it actually took me about 100 pages to really get invested in the story. I felt like it was pretty sloggy for the first part. This is chunked into parts, and so it took me a bit longer than I wanted to actually get into the story, and so I did lower my rating because of that, because I didn't love it throughout. I had to grow into the story. But I do still really enjoy it. I cannot wait to read Muse of Nightmares. I do not own it, but I really do want to continue on with the duology because this left off on a very interesting part and I was very connected to our characters. I also thought that there was a little bit of insta love, but I wasn't too concerned with that because of how Laini Taylor wrote our characters. So again, if you want to hear more thoughts about any of these books except for like 2, I do have vlogs for them, so you can check them out. But yeah, 4/4.5 out of 5 stars. I would recommend this if you're a fantasy lover or a lover of Laini Taylor. Next, I have the absolute worst book that I read this month, unfortunately, and that is The Damned by Renee Audier. So I buddy read this with my friend Ariel. I will link her channel down below, and we both were very disappointed in this book. There was really not a lot to save it, and I think even giving it a 2-star was a little generous. I almost gave it a 2.5, but I lowered it down to a 2-star. So the biggest things that I liked were that obviously Renee Audier has a lovely writing style. I have loved all of her books up until this one, and it was very quick to read. Even like spaced out with how Ariel and I were buddy reading it, it was very quick to get through the parts that we were reading. And there were a couple moments where we had some interactions with Celine and Bastian, which were the main characters in the first book and kind of still the main characters in this book. And so those few moments with them I really enjoyed, but overall there was just a lot of problems with this book. There were way too many perspectives. There was very much like not a good plot developed in here. Like that was, I don't know if this is going to be like a trilogy or a series or what. This could have major middle book syndrome. I don't know. I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't care about any of the villains or anything, and so it just really was a disappointing read, and I was really sad about it because I was expecting it to be really good, and it just wasn't. So worst book I read this month was The Damned. Luckily things will get better from here, but I don't even know what to do with this book now. Like I don't want to keep it, but it's also a second book and I kind of want to keep The Beautiful. So we'll figure it out eventually. Next, we have the best book that I read this month. So luckily, we followed up that with a really good book, and that is The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. And so I give this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and there was only really one thing that made me bump it down a little bit. But I really liked Leah as a character, our main character Leah. I loved the mystery surrounding the prince and the assassin. This is all kind of stuff that I've talked about previously. I haven't really talked about the plots very much, but so this follows our main character who is a princess. She's set to be arranged into a marriage. She runs away, and then the prince follows her as well as an assassin set out to kill her. That's pretty much the premise of this book. It was really, really good. It was fast to get through. I was really engaged almost throughout the whole thing. Like I said, the one part that I am bumping it down for was that there was probably like 75 to 100 pages like towards the end that was kind of sloggy to get through. There was I wasn't really interested in it, and so it kind of almost made me not want to continue on with the series. Like I was kind of okay where it left off. But yeah, I'm still deciding on that. But I really, really, really loved this, and I feel like a lot of other people enjoyed it too. So I would highly recommend this if you are a YA fantasy lover, or even not, because it had some mystery elements, it had some like good character development. It was a really good book. Then I read an ebook that was What You Wish For by Catherine Center, and I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I have loved Catherine Center's, well, I've really liked or loved Catherine Center's books in the past, and this one sounded right up my alley. It is following a teacher who has an encounter with a previous acquaintance who becomes the principal of her school, and I was really expecting great things out of this. I did really like the school perspective and like some of the things we saw from that, as I am going to be a teacher. There was some like talk about school shootings in there and stuff that I thought was really powerful. But overall, I didn't really connect with our characters or the romance at all. And there was a part at the end that was kind of thrown in there. I guess I can kind of see why it was thrown in there, but it was really kind of random. And so I just didn't really like it that well, but I didn't think there was anything inherently wrong with it. I just didn't connect that well. I read it very quickly because Catherine Center has a great writing style. She did everything fine to make it a good story, and she had some powerful parts in there, but I just didn't think it was spectacular. So I just gave it an average rating of 3 stars. It is an adult contemporary novel, so if you are into adult contemporary, I would just check out Catherine Center in general, but that one is not the one that I would recommend first of her books, just to say. But it wasn't bad, I just thought it was pretty average. Then the only horror thriller that I read this month was I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid, and this one is actually something that was probably on BookTube multiple years ago, but I am just now reading it because I was told to. And I gave this a 3-star. I really enjoyed the philosophical talk that is in this book, and there are moments in here that brought me true tense terror. I was sitting on the couch and I got spooked and I felt really scared. But overall, I was just really confused by this book, and I feel like I might even need to reread it again to understand it better, but I also don't want to. So there was a lot of confusing things, and I think that this is a book that could be talked about and debated, but as to what it was trying to do, I personally don't know. So I'm giving it an average 3, because I don't think it was, again, bad, but I also didn't understand it that well, so I don't think I grasped what the author wanted me to necessarily. So just an average book for me. I am passing it on. I'm not giving anything away, obviously, because it's one that I think you need to just read without knowing much about. So yeah, if you've read this book and want to talk about it, I definitely wouldn't mind, because I, again, don't know what to think of it, really. 3 more books to talk about. I guess I also should have mentioned I was doing a readathon in January, which was the Among Us readathon, which I also did vlogs for. I did tell you that, but that's what most of these books were for, was that readathon. We have Ashes in the Snow by Ruta Sepetys, which is the only historical fiction I read. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I was really surprised with the topic, because it's set in almost World War II era, but it's very much talking about the Stalin era, where he took over parts, and there was a lot of bad stuff going on, but that's something I never really talked about in school or learned about in school. So this was really eye-opening into that, what happened in that thing, because I feel like World War II era we're just told about the Holocaust, and this was something that happened too. And so we have our main character and her family are taken out of their home and pretty much turned into slaves, kind of. They have a lot of hardships, and it's pretty much the story of the hardships that they have to face being Lithuanians, and it was very much powerful, and I definitely liked it. But I did not connect to the characters in a way that I wish I had. There were sad moments, and I feel like if I had been a little bit more connected, I would have bawled like a baby, but I didn't. And so I do think there's a slight disconnect, even though I really enjoyed it as reading. It was really fast to get through. I just don't think it was necessarily a favorite historical fiction of all time, so that's why I'm giving it a 4. It's really hard for me to rate historical fictions low, especially if they do everything right, but just because it's not one of my favorites, that's why I'm rating it 4. So I definitely, again, would recommend this to most people. It's really eye-opening, especially if you were in a situation like me where you didn't learn about this culture or what happened with the Soviet stuff in Lithuania. Really eye-opening, but yeah, I'm glad I read it. I cannot wait to read more of Ruta's books in the future. Next, we have Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Leon. I gave this one a 4 as well. I really enjoyed it. Again, really fast to get through. I loved the world that she created and the like caste system and the demons and people, and it was just, I thought it was really interesting and I enjoyed reading it. The biggest issue I had was that I thought that the romance that happens was very much out of nowhere. Like, I'm not saying I didn't like it, I really did like it, but I don't feel like the characters connected much prior to them having a relationship, and that really bothered me for some reason. Also, this had a similar issue as to Kiss of Deception, where I don't think I want to continue on with the series. I'm completely fine with how I left this book. I really enjoyed it, but I don't think I want to continue. Like, I liked it, but I think I liked it here, and we're done. So, I definitely would recommend this. It has a female-female romance in it, and that's something that definitely was really hyped up when this came out, and I understand the hype. It was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I think if she writes any other books in the future, I definitely want to check them out. I just don't know if I want to continue on with this series. And then we have the last book that I read, which is Hall of Smoke by H.M. Long. I picked this one out for my debut book of the month, and I was really hyped up for it. Unfortunately, I only gave this a 3-star. I think that it did a lot of really good things. I thought that she created a pretty good world in one book, and this is a standalone. I really do appreciate that. I feel like a lot of fantasy books are series, and sometimes we just want a standalone. So I like that. I think that it's possible that she might make more stories in this world, but this one was a standalone. The biggest issues I had were that this was really dense, and there were so many names and gods being talked about that by the end it got kind of confusing to keep track of everyone. And I don't think that that is necessarily a bad thing in general, like in books, but in this one I just had a very hard time like keeping track of I don't want to say that. I knew who everyone was, but like I just felt like I was not even reading the names because there was just so many back to back to back. There's a lot going on in this book, a lot of different subplots and things, but in general we have our main character Hessa, who is trying to do what fate has set out for her goddess, and she goes on a journey and realizes things aren't quite as they seem. And so I did really enjoy it. It was long to get through. Like it wasn't a very easy to read writing style, which is weird because it started out like where I thought I wasn't going to like the writing style because it was too not dense, and then it got really dense. So it was just a journey for me. Again, I don't think it was bad. It's just maybe it wasn't a fantasy book for me because I was kind of getting bored and or ready for the book to end by the time it ended. So I would just say this is an average book. For her first book, it was pretty good, but for me personally, it was just a 3-star. So I probably will be passing this one on. But if you are into like high fantasy with like a whole world of gods and like interesting god dynamics, then this one might be good for you because that is mainly what this book is about. And so I just think that that's not really what I'm looking for in a fantasy, and that's the main reason why I didn't love it as much as I could have. So that was the last book that I read for the month. Like I said, I did start a couple books, but I will be mentioning them in my TBR because they will be carrying on into February, and it just seems right to fit them into that section instead. But yeah, those are all of the books that I read in January. I think it was a pretty good reading month. So let me know in the comments below what books you read in February, or like how many, what your favorite was. I really just want to have a discussion about books we read in January because I feel like a lot of people had a really good January reading month, similar to myself. So if you have read any of these, also loved them, or want to talk about them, again, comment or message me on Twitter. I'd love to talk. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'm glad you were here, and I hope you enjoyed these books, and maybe I have encouraged you to pick up a book or put it on your TBR. That would be pretty cool too. Thank you guys again. Make sure to give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more in the future. Tomorrow you should be seeing my February TBR, so that'll be the next time I see you. So see you then, guys. Bye!